Welcome back to Ben Keenan Just Can't Stop Talking. Per usual, I am Ben Keenan and I just cannot stop talking. Welcome back from the, month-long hiatus that we accidentally, intentionally took. But here we are, back in your ears or back on your screen, and better than ever, at least in this realm of where we exist for the next, 45 minutes. Some would argue, myself included, that we are not better than ever outside of the real world. So let's just disassociate for like a little bit and just talk about the real world as opposed to like experiencing it, right? You may have noticed that the introduction sounds a little bit different because we no longer have a song of the week. That would be because YouTube continues to take down and block all videos where I include music that I do not have permissions to play, but it's like, I'm not trying to make money off of it. I'm just trying to like tell you what I like this week. And they're like, actually, you can't do that. And I'm like, okay, well, what about all the people who are making like fan art? But whatever, that's not my, jurisdiction. But here we are. Obviously, we're not talking about a song of the week, but what we will be talking about is the top 10 things that happened this week. If a song is one of those at a future date, it may be included. But until then, we're just going to start the top 10 countdown of things that happened this week that you should be aware of, or this last week, so that you know a little bit about a lot of it. Be smarter every single day. So without further ado, let's jump into number 10. Hailey Welch, aka the Hawk Tuah Girl, is dropping a new dating app called Pookie Tools. According to People magazine, after dropping her successful podcast, Hawk Tuah, in September, the 22-year-old online personality is keeping the media momentum going with a brand new dating app, as though we needed another godforsaken dating app. But here's the kicker. It is not just a regular dating app. Pookie Tools is an innovative twist on the classic dating app that the social media star describes as, quote, your dating sidekick. It's designed to transform the way romantic hopefuls connect and rebuild relationships. Before I read you any more of this, I think my main concern is that we are already so online and we don't get offline and talk to people out in the real world. So the last thing we need is AI-driven sidekicks online, right? Like, remember the people who like fall in love with AI chatbots because they have no social skills? I just don't think that this is necessary, but pop off, Hailey, if that's what you want to do. So here's a direct quote from Hailey herself. I'm giving y'all my new cheat codes for navigating dating with confidence. No swiping, just smart tools to help you connect better, to find your own Pookie and hopefully love them forever. You know that she did not come up with this. Some nerd out in Silicon Valley came up with this and said, hey, let's get some folksy girl who's got the media momentum right now and attach her to it, which is why they're calling it Pookie Tools. It's a horrible name. Hawk Tuah, as we talked before, great name. Objectively a fantastic name for a podcast, Hawk Tuah, when her whole thing is Hawk Tuah. Pookie Tools sounds like something that a literal nerd came up with and said, let's find some blonde to attach to this and sell the shit out of it. Now, Welch strives to simplify the dating experience for others with the launch of Pookie Tools app, which offers a suite of AI-driven features to easily navigate the dating world. The app, exclusively available on iOS, this is not paid. I know it's going to sound like that, but I'm just reading the description to you, has several key features. Among them include a conversation assistant with personalized suggestions to keep chats going, Zodiac capability, outfit recommendations, date ideas, and engaging openers to help break the ice. If you cannot talk to a partner online where you have all the time in the world to consider what you are going to say without the help of an AI chatbot, then you are not ready to date. I'm so sorry. What is going to happen when you go on the actual date and they realize that everything that you were saying on the app is something that an AI chatbot came up with? That doesn't sound like the foundation of a very healthy relationship to me, but what do I know? I'm the chronically single one in the friend group, so somebody's got to do it, and I guess maybe I'll just hop on Pookie Tools and help myself to an AI chatbot conversation, I guess. But because I know you're just as curious as I am, the main question on everyone's mind is, who is Pookie? Well, on her November 12th episode, she actually revealed more to us. The 22-year-old internet star hard launched her boyfriend, Kelby Blackwell, who she has lovingly referred to as Pookie, on the Talk to a podcast. This was just 1 month after they made their relationship official in October. Listen to this.
Pookie, where are you? Come on, we don't bite. Well, hello everyone. This is Pookie. This is Kelby right here. This is my hot piece of ass I drag around with me every day.
Nice to meet everybody.
I'm just kidding. He is a hot piece of ass, though.
Additionally, Hailey said, quote, "I just want to show the people that I can pull a bad bitch. My man is a bad bitch and I'm proud of it. That's my arm candy right there. I'm so proud of him." Perfect. I love that for you. 1 month hard launch is crazy, but somewhere in there, I guess they were also talking about how they've been like off and on not serious for 3 full years. And I'm like, all right, well, here we go. 1 month later. That's the tea, sis. I think this could probably be best summed up with the tweet from the New York Times tech reporter Mike Isaac, who tweeted, "I unironically respect this woman's game, writing every possible trend into the dust to secure the bag. Fleece those VCs, queen. Yas. Fleece those VCs, queen." Number 9, former Detroit Lions linebacker Antwione Williams was charged with assaulting police during the January 6th riots this week. So you all remember January 6th, you remember all of those people that were assaulting the police, that were like charging the Capitol, all that stuff. Well, this was the former Detroit's linebacker, Antwione Williams, and he was arrested on felony charges and connected with the riots that happened at the Capitol on January 6th. According to the criminal complaint that was filed in Washington, D.C. on November 7th, so this past week, the 31-year-old former NFL player is being accused of multiple misdemeanors as well as felony charges of civil disorder, assaulting, resisting, or impeding police. Williams can allegedly be seen in police body cam footage and other videos captured during the 2021 incident at Capitol Hill, assaulting an officer and destructing bike rack barricades at the scene. You remember those videos of the people like holding up the bike racks and like pushing the police? Yeah. Authorities were able to identify Williams as the individual in the footage through matching both the hat and a key fob seen in the video with Williams' social media posts per the documents. If you are going to commit crimes, do a shopping spree. There is absolutely no reason that you should be wearing the same hat that you committed a crime in day to day on your social media feed, brother. You have to just think about, for 1 second, the connections that can be made from you being a publicly notable linebacker for an NFL team and you literally storming the Capitol. Like, there's got to be some connection there. People are like, "Oh, I recognize you because I watch you every fucking Sunday playing football." Like, all I'm asking is either don't wear a hat or wear a hat you've never worn before, or wear a hat and then throw it away. If you're going to commit crimes, be smart about it. I feel like criminals are just too dumb nowadays. Additionally, Williams' height, weight, and build matched the description of the man in the footage, and authorities included a still from when the former NFL player momentarily removed his face mask to relieve the effects of chemical irritants at the scene. Once again, he was masked up. We love a safety king. And then because he was storming the Capitol and got irritants, aka like pepper spray, in his face mask, he removed his mask. God, these people are literally so dumb, it hurts my brain. The charges against William are actually the first from the January 6th riots to come after Donald Trump was elected president for a second term. And Donald Trump has been talking about for, months, maybe years at this point, that he wants to pardon all January 6 rioters. I wonder if that is only the rioters before he was elected, because now he's like, I don't know, I've already been elected. Why do I owe you more stuff? You weren't, a criminal at that point, technically, whatever. But, Donald Trump's a notorious liar. So the odds of these people actually being pardoned are like slim to none. Also, what are the odds that Antwione Williams is going to be like wrangling for a spot in the cabinet now, right? Because Trump actively just wants people who are criminals and loyal to him on his cabinet. So it's like Antwione seems like both now. He's now a criminal and he's also loyal to Trump, which is why he stormed the fucking Capitol in the first place. I don't know. I'm just saying. Number 8, country singer Blake Shelton and Taylor Sheridan are teaming up for a new singing competition show called The Road. Now, I don't know who Taylor Sheridan is, so I did look it up. And the first thing it says is, after leaving The Voice earlier this year, Blake Shelton and Yellowstone creator Taylor Sheridan have teamed up to search for the next music star, and by that they mean country star, in the CBS competition show The Road, expected to be released in fall of 2025. So I haven't seen Yellowstone, which would explain why I don't know who the creator is, Taylor Sheridan, but like apparently he's got some connection to country music because he's doing Yellowstone as a show, which is a country-ass show. I don't know. On The Road, artists will join the headliner on tour, performing as opening acts at venues throughout the country. They will have to compete to win over local fan bases in order to stay on the tour and land a spot in the next city. The artist headlining the tour has yet to be announced. The show also aims to help prepare prospective stars for the demanding schedule of a multi-date tour, which I actually appreciate that aspect because I think a lot of young, up-and-coming or new to the game artists have really long tours themselves, like a lot of dates attached to it. And they get really exhausted. And the first couple shows, they're nervous. And then the middle shows are good. And then the last couple shows, they're like, I've kind of done 25 shows already. Like, but it's the first one I've seen. Like, can you be, I live in the Northwest. So we either get the beginning of all the shows or the end of all the shows. We never get the middle. And so we either get like really good or really shit, Also, I'm really curious to see who the headliner could be here because it's got to be somebody who's like up and coming in country music, but is also like semi-popular, but also could use a bump from the show and isn't actively touring themselves. I wonder if it would be like a Luke Bryan. Like I saw him at Watershed and he's like in the game enough that I think he could be a fun headliner where he's also been a judge like on American Idol. And so he like knows what the competition would be like and like giving an opportunity to the next generation. But also what if it's like a new face, like a Zach Bryan, right? Who's like all these new people, Zach Bryans and Morgan Wallens are always going through drama, especially in the country music scene, because there's always been some shit said online that really just like fucks with people. And I could see them trying to use this to rehabilitate an image with the people who don't listen to the music day to day, but do know their names through social media. And if you rehabilitate it with an older generation on TV and associate it with a younger generation of new singers, maybe they try to rehabilitate. So that's my guess. It's going to be like a Luke Bryan or a Zach Bryan, a lot of Bryans here, or like a Morgan Wallen type. So, according to Taylor Sheridan, quote, there is a revolution taking place in country music. Building a platform with Blake for the next leaders of that revolution is an incredibly exciting venture. No more shiny floors and studio audiences. This is where the rubber meets the road. Literally, get in the van, go to the next town, and win the crowd. Do it enough, and you become the next leader. Simple as that. And then Blake Shelton added a quote as well. I'm a big fan of Taylor's incredible work, and I'm excited to team with him and my longtime collaborator Lee on, quote, the road. I know a thing or two about singing competitions and what it's like to chase a music dream and live life on tour. I'm looking forward to discovering new talent and giving them this platform. We have a full year before the show premieres, so I'm sure we'll learn more about who the headliner is, but it's an interesting concept. I'm just not sure it's going to be sustainable for more than maybe one season, but I'm ready to be proven wrong. Number 7, as you probably know, we had a presidential election 2 weeks ago at this point, just shy of 2 weeks ago. As of today, the Republicans now have full control over the House, the Senate, and the presidency, which means the cabinet is also going to be under Republican control. And then, as you probably also know, the Supreme Court is already currently under Republican control with a 6-3 majority, I believe. So yeah, the federal government is officially under complete Republican control. At the time of this recording, the Republicans currently have 219 seats in the House of Representatives, where you need 218 in order to take the majority and be the one to pass all the laws and everything. They have a couple outstanding races they need to call still, so the Republicans will either end up with 220 or 221 seats, which means at maximum, they will have 3 seats that they can lose in order, like not have somebody sitting in order to keep, and everybody has to vote yes in order to keep the majority. But Trump has already brought at least 3 Republicans into the cabinet that he is assembling, which means that all of these seats now have to go into special elections, which usually take a couple months to do. So when we enter the new year, there is a very real chance that the Republicans will have a 1-vote majority. And that means like, if one Republican out of 218 says they don't want to vote for something, it fails. That is very, very hard to govern in the United States because people are so divided nationally on what should be done. Additionally, Senator John Thune, a Republican from South Dakota, is now the new Senate Majority Leader for the Republicans. That was what Mitch McConnell previously did until he said he was going to step down and retire after his current stint as the senator from Kentucky. Also, while we're recording at this very time, Trump officially has lower than 50% of the vote total for the 2024 election, and he now joins in the history books with William Jennings Bryan as the only major party candidate to ever run for the presidency 3 times and fail to receive 50% of the vote in any election, which here's the thing. People are going to be like, well, he has a mandate because he won the majority of the vote. No, he won the plurality of the vote. He technically won the highest amount of the vote, but the majority of the country voted for someone, well, the majority of the voting population, because we only have like 40, 50%, population voting participation. More than 50% of the people who voted in the voting population voted for somebody besides Trump, whether that be Kamala Harris or Jill Stein or Chase Oliver. I think that was the Libertarian candidate. Basically, no the fuck you don't have a mandate. Just because you won the most votes does not mean that the majority of the country supports what you're trying to do. Actively, the majority of the country voted against you because you did not get above 50%. And there's still like 2 million votes to be counted in California. And so it's like, you're going to have less than that anyway. I think he's currently only leading by like 1% of the vote, which means that it's like 48 to 49% or some shit like that. Okay. That's that on that, because you're going to see a lot of stuff online and people being like, well, there's an actual mandate that people want a MAGA, country because Trump won the majority. And you can very calmly say, actually, and you don't have to actually, but you can actually, he didn't win the majority. The majority of people voted for somebody who wasn't a Republican. So what does it really mean to be running all three portions of the government, the House, the Senate, and the presidency? What it means is that everything that happens over the next 2 years will be laid at the feet of the Republican Party, right? So sometimes if there's going to be a party, like currently under Biden, the Republicans run the House and the Democrats run the Senate and the presidency. You need all three nowadays for the majority of the legislative acts that you are going to be doing. So if you run all three and you don't get things done, you cannot blame the minority party. So now that the Republicans own all three, if nothing gets done over the next 2 years before the midterms come up, Donald Trump cannot say, well, the Democrats stopped me from doing this, because no, the fuck they didn't. The Republicans are in charge. You have the votes in the House and the Senate to pass whatever the fuck you want. And if you can't get that done, that means it's too absurd for your own party to vote for and pass into law. So I just want everyone who's listening to understand that loud and clear, is that anytime something doesn't pass over the next 2 years, it cannot be blamed on the Democrats, even though Donald Trump and the Republicans in the House and the Senate are going to first try to blame the Democrats for not getting on board. That is not the role of the minority party. The role of the minority party is to be the party opposition. It is to represent the other part of the country that didn't vote for the majority. Just plain and simple. Speaking of, number 6, Donald Trump has started to unveil his cabinet picks of the people that he wants to actually run the government with him. For those of you that don't follow along, the cabinet are going to be any of like the secretaries, right? So we're thinking like the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, Secretary of Homeland Security, Veterans Affairs, Agriculture, all of these secretaries Donald Trump has to nominate and the Senate passes. There's also like the Attorney General, the Director of National Intelligence, and things like this. On the other side, he's appointing people like his Chief of Staff that do not have to be voted in by the Senate. He can just say, you're now my Chief of Staff, you're now my comms director, you're now the press secretary. Those people don't have to be voted in and agreed to by the Senate. So I'm actually going to talk about this super in depth in like the first deep dive podcast that I'm going to put up sometime this week. But I want to give you just a very, very quick rundown of just some of the characters that you have already seen earn nominations or earn appointments. So first, we have people who have been in the Republican Party for a long time, like Marco Rubio or Elise Stefanik, who have been put in charge of the Secretary of State, and then the UN ambassador, United Nations ambassador for Elise Stefanik. You also see some people who used to run against Trump for this current nomination in 2024, like the North Dakota governor, I believe, Doug Burgum, who is now going to be Secretary of the Interior, Vivek Ramaswamy, who is now partnering with Elon Musk to run I think it's the Department of Government Efficiency, which isn't a real department. It's just some bullshit that was made up by Trump and Elon and Vivek, and departments have to be passed by Congress. Let's put that forward. So it could be at some point in this next 2 years an actual department. But as of right now, it's just a bullshit made up name where they're going to, I think they said they wanted to take like $2 trillion away from the $6 trillion government. So like, okay, great. We're going to lose a third of the funding that we're currently doing, which is going to really hurt Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security and Veterans Affairs and health and all that. But like I said, we'll talk about that more during the deep dive. But the ones that are a little more shocking to me are like RFK Jr., who used to be running against Biden for the Democratic primary. Nobody wanted him because he's a fucking nut. and he then moved to becoming an independent, endorsed Trump, and is now going to be in charge of Health and Human Services. Tulsi Gabbard, who's the former Democratic representative from Hawaii who ran for the presidency under the Democratic Party against Biden and everybody else in 2020, is well known to be like a Russian asset. Well, she is now going to be the director of national intelligence, to the point of where Russian Twitter accounts were like praising her. So it's kind of like, okay, well, that's suspicious as hell. And then Matt Gaetz, who is the Republican congressman from Florida, who's currently under investigation for sex trafficking and having sex with a minor. Well, he was nominated to be the Attorney General of the United States, aka the head of the Department of Justice. So, like I said, we will talk about all of that in depth. Somebody who I don't think gets enough visibility in this discussion is Joe Exotic, who you might remember from Tiger King, which was extremely popular during the pandemic. He penned a letter to Donald Trump asking for a pardon from all the crimes and to be let out of his prison sentence effective immediately. He also offered to serve in Trump's cabinet as the federal fish and wildlife director. So according to the letter, which was obtained by Radar Online, Joe Exotic, whose real name is Joe Maldonado Passage, asked to be released from the Federal Medical Center in Fort Worth, Texas. Fort Worth, Texas. That is difficult to say, Texans. So Newsweek reported on this, continuing, quote, "A lot of people went to bat for you in 2021 who have been living in hell ever since then," wrote Exotic, who is serving 21 years in prison for his murder-for-hire case against rival Carol Baskin. Quote, "Everyone hopes you keep the promises you made during your campaign, which include pardoning everyone sooner than later in January 2025. Everyone, that is, okay, well, whatever. It continues, "Some, like myself, have fought like hell to hang on, hoping for you to win this election," he continued, noting that he had been scared as hell of Vice President Kamala Harris potentially winning. In addition to his release, Exotic also asked in his letter to be a part of Trump's cabinet as the new federal fish and wildlife director, saying, quote, "It is time to bring some honesty to the department because the former director, Dan Ash, only looked out for himself and his position within the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. He used his federal position to put me out of business and in prison to benefit his nonprofit, the AZA, because you know how this works. Everyone who gets in trouble because of the criminal shit that they have done, always blame it on someone else. Just as the sun will rise tomorrow, this is one thing you can expect from a motherfucking criminal." Number 5, Spirit Airlines is preparing to file bankruptcy.
Spirit Airlines, the low-cost carrier, is preparing for bankruptcy. Our transportation correspondent Gio Benitez is here with what this could mean for the airline and passengers. Good morning, Gio.
Hey, George. Good morning. Yeah, this all comes after reports that merger talks have broken down for the company. Spirit Airlines now filing for bankruptcy protection, but the airline insists nothing will change. Now, Spirit's saying overnight that it's been in active and constructive negotiations with note holders over the company's restructuring. The company citing much higher operating expenses this year versus last year with lower revenues, in part because Spirit and other airlines are no longer charging change and cancellation fees. Now, the Wall Street Journal reporting that another budget airline, Frontier, dropped its bid for a merger with Spirit, triggering this filing. Now, overnight, Spirit telling ABC News that this restructuring process will not have any impact on guests and that you can still book and fly with the airline like you always have.
The Florida-based budget that makes sense. It's Florida-based. The Florida-based budget airline is in advanced discussions with bondholders to hammer out a bankruptcy plan that would have support from a majority of creditors. Oh my God, do you hear that stutter? I just bit my cheek. This is so classic of fucking Spirit Airlines, make me bite my own cheek. Spirit is preparing a bankruptcy filing within weeks, the people said. Spirit has also been in discussions with rival Frontier in hopes that the two carriers could revive earlier plans to join forces, likely as part of a broader restructuring and bankruptcy. Frontier decided not to move forward with such a merger at this time. Spirit and Frontier declined to comment because why would they comment on this shit show of a discussion? So you might remember Spirit as the company that is charging add-ons for literally breathing clean air on the plane. The only thing you get with your ticket is the actual seat. Everything else, the million other things that show up on an airline cost extra money, right? With this news, I actually saw reports that shares dropped 38% from $3.22 to $2, which I mean, okay, it's like $3.22, but it was also Spirit Airlines. Nobody expected the place that literally charged you to sit instead of stand would make a good business, right? We just all kind of knew that this day was coming at some point. It's like when Red Lobster was doing all the bottomless shrimp. Like, explain to me how that is a good idea, because, speaking of, I think the new CEO said they're no longer doing that because he knows how to do math. Thank you very much. Because who would have thought that Americans who know how to fucking eat, you've seen us, you've seen the fact that we have literal hot dog eating contests, wouldn't sit down and have 150 shrimp in one sitting, right? We know good and bad business models in this country. We knew that that was a bad idea. We probably all saw that Spirit Airlines was a bad idea too. The tweets are already hilarious, with one person tweeting, "There is only one way that this Spirit Airlines bankruptcy can reasonably end." And for those of you that are listening and not looking, it is a Spirit Halloween sign, just like taped right to the side of the Spirit headquarter building. And Vogue Runway also tweeted, "The budget airline, which is reportedly on the brink of bankruptcy, is also known for being, well, not necessarily the gold standard of air travel. I'll miss it anyway." And honestly, I miss the memes already, especially if you fully go under, Spirit. Who would have thought that a business model whose entire premise is making money off of add-ons and stressing customers out wouldn't survive through the year 2024? Not me. Number 4, Euphoria Season 3 will officially begin production in January with an 8-episode season. I know there's been discussion left, right, and center about whether this was going to happen or not, but guess what it is? Euphoria Season 3 is still on track, according to HBO Max boss Casey Bloys, B-L-O-Y-S, Bloys, I think. HBO had previously announced that Season 3 would at long last go into production in January 2025, almost exactly 3 years after the premiere of Season 2, and according to Bloys, that is still the case. Quote, "We are shooting Euphoria," he told reporters on Tuesday at the HBO Max press event. "I think we have a start date, mid to late January. Nothing's changed. Somebody said something online, and then this whole thing started. We are shooting the season. I have read the scripts. We're happy. We're moving ahead. All the actors are in the show." So a lot of stars, came out of this show, and I'm sure he said this very flippantly about like all the stars are coming back. But with that being discussed, it's important to know that no, not all the stars are coming back. So the main cast of Euphoria included Zendaya, Sydney Sweeney, Jacob Elordi, Hunter Schafer, Storm Reed, Alexa Demi, and Eric Dane. Angus Cloud, who originally broke out in his role as Fezco, died at the age of 25 in July of 2023. That was all over the news. You probably all already know that. He, unfortunately, due to the death, will not be in the show. They've got to figure out a way to write out his character. Meanwhile, some cast members have also already indicated that they would not be returning for the additional seasons, such as Barbie Ferreira. Casey Bloys goes on to say, "I know the show gets a lot of attention now because it has created some genuine movie stars and they have various projects that they're working on, but we are shooting this season, so nothing has changed. It's 8 episodes. According to Vanity Fair, Zendaya also made it very clear that she had nothing to do with the fact that season 3 was being postponed multiple times. She said, "I will say, I've been off for a couple years, so not delayed because of my schedule. I've been open, just waiting." Now, Ben, personally have not seen Euphoria yet. People were saying it was good, and then they were like, it was really kind of depressing. Like, it made me really think about things in high school the way I didn't want to. So I kind of held off holding, a watch party for myself. It might be about that time to start the watch party, maybe in the new year, right? Maybe like the first day of the new year, I just start watching Euphoria, an episode a day, an episode a week or whatever. If they're not going to start production until January, I got time before season 3 comes out. Number 3, the FBI raided the home of Polymarket CEO Shayne Coplan this week. On Wednesday morning, the FBI raided the New York City apartment of Shayne Coplan, the founder and CEO of Polymarket. Now, Polymarket is one of the most active prediction betting markets, which gained mainstream during the presidential election. It was the one that said, like, Trump has a 69% chance of winning. And then it would be like, Kamala now has a 51% chance of, winning. And it's like, people would say, see, I'm going to win. And it's like, well, those aren't polls. That's just the betting data. It confused a lot of people online. I mean, they ended up ultimately being right because Trump won the election, but it was like the way that they were doing it was not based on anything besides vibes, because it was like, oh, look, Trump's going to win because people feel that Trump's going to win. Or, oh, look, this week Kamala had a good performance of the debate, so they feel she's going to win. So people betted on her, so then she had like a 60% chance. It was all very odd. I don't think we should be betting on presidential elections, but that's just me. It is not clear what the FBI was seeking when numerous agents entered Copland's apartment at around 6 a.m., or if Copland and or Polymarket are even targets of an investigation. Copland was home at the time of the raid. Also, it should be known that Americans aren't allowed to use Polymarket. on which one of the French traders reportedly won nearly $50 million. So the company reportedly had been raising new venture capital after having already secured over $80 million from backers like Peter Thiel's Founders Fund. We can talk about Peter Thiel down the road, but basically he props up a whole bunch of far-right Republican figures like Blake Masters, who ran for Senate in Arizona. I actually think he's friends with J.D. Vance, which is what makes it all shady. And people were like, I don't trust Polymarket because it's, connected to Peter Thiel, who's connected to some of these people who are currently running for the president or technically the vice presidency of the United States. Now, what Polymarket is saying, quote, this is obvious political retribution by the outgoing administration against Polymarket for providing a market that correctly called the 2024 presidential election, a Polymarket spokesperson tells Axios, quote, Polymarket is a fully transparent prediction market that helps everyday people better understand the events that matter most to them, including elections. The FBI carried out a court-authorized law enforcement activity at Coplan's building earlier today, the federal law enforcement source tells Axios. So, Axios got, all the deets here, and the FBI said, this was court-authored. We didn't just do this roguely. A judge saw it and said, yeah, go do this. They found something that they were, going to raid him for. And then Polymarket itself is like, lock me up because I'm sorry I called Trump being the winner. I called it correctly. Here's the fucking thing. You weren't wrong. So why do you think that somebody would arrest you if you didn't do something illegal? People were predicting Trump was going to win online for 4 years since he lost last time. None of those people are going to jail because I don't think any of those people did something the FBI said we should be concerned about. So here's the thing. Get off your fucking high horse and don't do illegal shit. I feel like I have this conversation every time we do a podcast where somebody is being a criminal. They're like, it's not my fault. No one made you do criminal shit. And we don't know what came out yet, but the fact that you're saying this is literally retribution from the outgoing administration, something tells me that you're trying to cover up and being like, oh my God, this is just an abuse of power and Daddy Trump will get me out of trouble when he takes, shut up, dude. All right, number 2. Actor John Krasinski has officially been named People's Sexiest Man Alive for 2024. And I'm going to read you directly the quote that People magazine wrote for John Krasinski. People's 2024 Sexiest Man Alive has had us swooning for years, ever since he starred as Jim Halpert in the hit NBC series The Office. After his career-defining role, the actor went on to lead films like 13 Hours and A Quiet Place, which co-starred his wife Emily Blunt, as well as the Amazon political thriller show Jack Ryan. Though he declared he was surprised to find himself with the title, these photos prove he had been a candidate since the beginning. And then they proceeded to post like 15 of the thirstiest photos of John Krasinski that you probably have seen. Only one is shirtless though, which I'm a little surprised when they're like, this proves it. But, he's 45 years old and I need you to see like this man is fucking ripped. I think this picture was from Jack Ryan where it's a good show. I've seen it. He's good in it. I like John Krasinski generally. I think he's a good actor. I think he's funny. I think he's probably a pretty good person. Right. But he got absolutely ripped. And it's like, okay, I could see people who are still reading People magazine are the ones, voting for a 45-year-old man. Right. There's another picture of him walking down some sort of hallway in a suit. He has a beard, which means that this is absolutely not The Office, even though he is in an office. And then another one that I pulled is him, kind of more Jim Halpert-esque in a suit, 3-piece vest type of thing. No beard. So looks a little bit younger. Couldn't tell you where it's from. However, this was a very, very, very controversial selection, and I'm actually going to read you some words from Emily Zemler of Rolling Stone so that we can see what others online were thinking about the decision. So, her headline, Internet Divided as People names John Krasinski Sexiest Man Alive. Subheading, this is the second worst Tuesday night decision in the past week, according to some fans online. Okay, she says, in an act of sheer chaos, People has declared John Krasinski as the sexiest man alive for 2024, a title that would have been far more fitting for the actor a decade ago at the height of The Office. Even Krasinski himself admitted in the magazine's cover story released at midnight that he thought he was being punked. That's not how I wake up thinking, is this the day that I'll be asked to be the sexiest man alive, he told People. And yet, it was the day you guys did it. You guys have really raised the bar for me. More confusingly, the magazine has somehow tied Krasinski's achievement to his recent movie If, which he starred in, wrote, produced, and directed to mediocre reviews. Although he produced this year's much better movie, A Quiet Place Day One, Krasinski did not return to direct it after helming the first two. Krasinski appeared on The Late Show to promote his selection, discussing the news with host Stephen Colbert, who was given the honor of announcing this year's Sexiest Man Alive. I'm so proud to see my friend go from goofy, lovable boy next door to big, dumb sex hunk, Colbert told Krasinski. I guess said to would also have worked. The actor then shared an instructional video he and Colbert made about how to transform yourself, quote, from a sack of crap to a hunk of beef. The 6 steps include not eating and stealing sexy DNA from Chris Evans. In case you were curious who the other people in the running for this were, People also released an article that said, see People's 2024 Men of the Year. Check out 11 of the guys from our Sexiest Man Alive issue who had a great looking 2024. These include Manny Jacinto, Pedro Pascal, Andrew Garfield, Austin Butler, Shabuzi, Paul Mescal, Theo James, Timothy Chalamet, Joshua Jackson, Matt Bomer, and Stephen Colbert himself. Now listen, I understand looks are subjective. You cannot look at John Krasinski and be like, that's a bad looking dude. He is objectively a good looking guy. And like I said before, I bet he's probably a pretty nice person all around. I've never heard anything bad about him, right? And yes, maybe when he was Jim, he probably had more like public appeal to the masses. But once again, the readership of People are gonna be moms sitting at home in their mid 40s who say, you know who I've been really into recently after he got jacked? John Krasinski. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. It's the exact same reason that we saw some of these other Sexiest Man Alive being like, Chrissy Teigen's husband, John Legend. When people were pissed about that, it's like, okay, well, he was really popular at the time. So get off your high horse, okay? It's just a poll by one magazine. If you want to think another man sexier, do that. I'm team John Krasinski, as I think he's just a good dude, and look how fucking ripped he is. And number 1 this week, satirical site The Onion has officially bought InfoWars in partnership with some of the parents from the Sandy Hook victims. In an announcement made on Twitter, Ben Collins, CEO of The Onion, announced, hello, The Onion, with help of the Sandy Hook families, has purchased InfoWars. We're planning on making a very stupid website. We've retained some Onion and Clickhole Hall of Famers to pull it off. I can't wait to show you what we cooked up. Now, because this is a little bit of like a sticky legalese type of situation, I'm going to read from the New York Times directly. The Onion wins bid to buy InfoWars, Alex Jones's site, out of bankruptcy. The satirical news site intends to turn InfoWars into a parody of itself, but the court overseeing the bankruptcy put a hold on the sale pending a hearing next week. So, long story short, The Onion, a satirical publication that skewers newsmakers and current events, said on Thursday that it had won a bankruptcy auction to acquire InfoWars, which is a website founded and operated by the conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. In a twist all too typical of the 6 years and often chaotic litigation, within hours, the bankruptcy judge temporarily halted the deal. The Onion said its bid was sanctioned by families of the victims of the mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School, who in 2022 won a $1.4 billion defamation lawsuit against Alex Jones and his company. The publication plans to reintroduce InfoWars in January as a parody of itself, mocking, quote, weird internet personalities like Alex Jones who traffic in misinformation and health supplements. Ben Collins, the chief executive of The Onion's parent company, Global Tetrahedron, said in an interview. A lawyer for The Onion said that the deal was secure, but during an emergency hearing, hours after a triumphant announcement, Judge Christopher Lopez of U.S. Bankruptcy Court in Houston put a hold on the sale until a hearing early next week. Judge Lopez cited concerns about a lack of transparency in the secret bidding process and a need to clarify which assets the winners are buying. One of the assets in dispute is Alex Jones's account on X, aka Twitter, for those of you that aren't fully like Elon pilled. So if you didn't know, this is basically a huge deal. Alex Jones was the conspiracy theorist who, okay, let's go back, I guess. In 2012, the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting took place where 20 first graders were killed and 6 educators were killed in Newtown, Connecticut. Alex Jones is an online conspiracy theorist that ran InfoWars, which is like a podcast media network type of thing. And he called it a hoax. He said that all of the kids that, quote, died were, quote, actors, and everybody who was like crying, all the parents were paid actors, and nobody really died, and the school shooting never happened. And basically, he had just been defaming them for like 10 full years. So the parents sued and won $1.4 billion from Alex Jones. He obviously cannot afford that. This man is not a billionaire. So what he had to do was basically liquidate all his assets. He sold off all of his property. He, was just like, he owed money hand over fist to these Sandy Hook parents for defaming them for 10 years, saying that their children weren't killed in a school shooting. It's all insane. And so basically the end of it, in order to get money to pay this not settlement, but like the decision of the $1.4 billion, he had to sell InfoWars, which was just a massive fucking moneymaker because it's a right-wing conspiracy site and those make a lot of money. So this lawsuit basically led to the selling off of InfoWars, which then went to bid. And there, I think, was only one other person who bid on it because it went to auction. Nobody wants InfoWars. It's literally such a toxic thing. The only other person who bid for it was the guy that was in charge of the supplement company that Alex Jones was hawking on the podcast itself. Like, he was selling these supplements, and I think the owner of that company was the only other bidder against the owner of The Onion, which is the satirical news site, in partnership with the Sandy Hook parents. And I think the most insane part about all of this is that they are going to use this in order to take down right-wing conspiracy nuts on the internet, like these people have been trying to do to normal, everyday people every single day. Like, these Sandy Hook parents are finally getting a little bit of justice by being able to own the most prized asset that Alex Jones has. And I think there's just something extremely poetic about that. Personally, obviously, this upcoming week, there is going to be that hearing, but I think that's just about dividing the assets and see what is considered part of InfoWars. I will let you know when we learn more because I love when justice is served. Oh, sweet, sweet justice. And while this didn't make our top 10 news of the week, our honorable mention news was the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight that happened on Netflix. So if you didn't see it, on Friday night, Jake Paul, a 27-year-old YouTuber turned boxer, fought professional boxer Mike Tyson, who is 58 years old, live on Netflix. However, the live portion of this is in quotes because there were literally so many issues with the live stream, which I don't know if any of you saw that same issue a couple years ago during the Love is Blind live reunion that they were doing. I just don't think that Netflix is ready for live. Or if you want to do live so badly, why don't you just acquire a company like Sling who does all the live stuff, and it's like, then you guys can do live and streaming. Sling, if your lawyers are listening to this, don't come for me. I'm just saying, like, you're an example of a smaller live streaming company, and Netflix is an example of an absolutely fucking massive global brand that only does regular streaming. They can't do anything live. During the boxing debut, there were users' complaints of the app crashing. There were poor resolutions. The mics went out a couple times. It was all just really bad, top to bottom, and people were just unhappy with the experience. Additionally, people had been saying for a while that the fight was a fix from the start. So once again, Jake Paul is 27 years old. Mike Tyson is more than double his age at 58. Paul had been the one to propose a fight with Mike Tyson. Excuse me. Oh my God, burping. Jeez, I had a bagel earlier. I think that's repeating on me. It had jalapenos. So Paul had been the one to propose a fight with Tyson, with whom he had a friendly relationship 2 years ago, and had said that it was Tyson's idea to make it a pro match rather than an exhibition. This means that the result would be reflected on their career records as opposed to just like a friendly, like, who won the fight, right? After several other states declined to sanction the match, that should tell you something. Texas agreed. That should also tell you something, though it imposed a shorter format of 8 2-minute rounds instead of 10 to 12 3-minute rounds, and required the boxers to wear 14-ounce gloves, which were heavier than the standard to reduce impact. Obviously, having somebody more than 2 times younger than you fight like a Mike Tyson, like, yeah, he's great. He's 58. Your body slows down. Okay. So it ended with, obviously, Jake Paul was favored. It ended with him winning by an unsurprising unanimous decision after a full 8 rounds on Friday night. However, aren't they both winners, considering that Mike Tyson received $20 million for the match and Jake Paul was paid $40 million? There were $17.8 million worth of ticket sales, which is the biggest gate total ever for a match held outside of Las Vegas. So even though they won with, absolutely massive amounts of money coming into their bank accounts, didn't we as a society really lose? it wasn't Mike Tyson. He still got $20 million. No, we as a society lost. But we as a society also won, because I think the real star and the real winner here was the fact that Mike Tyson's assless chaps were shown live on Netflix. They panned away when he was talking, I think, with his son, and he walked away and his butt is literally just out, and Netflix just zoomed into his back so quickly because you saw the entirety of the ass. And actually, if you're on YouTube, I will just play it for you right now.
What's your prediction?
Vicious win.
Vicious win. Thank you, Dad.
Love you.
Love you too.
That one of the funniest thing I maybe have ever seen. That's it. That's another week full of news for you. We have, covered pretty much everything you can expect, from sports to politics to movies to singing competitions to butts. We covered it all, right? What else could you have wanted from this last week? There was this whole ton of shit that we didn't include. Also, we got to figure out a way to include more than just the 10 without this being like a 3-hour show, right? Thank you again for listening. Per usual, you can find me on social media. You can find me on TikTok at I've Been Traveling. You can find me on Instagram at Ben Keenan. This is obviously a podcast that can be found on Spotify and Apple Podcast under Ben Keenan Just Can't Stop Talking. But you can also watch me on YouTube by the same name, or, listen vice versa. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can listen to it by the same name. You know where to find me. I'm around. Until next week, when I'm sure we're going to have way more to talk about, because per usual, there's always something to talk about. Thanks.